Hey guys, what's up? It's Lectic here, and this is my new PC so far. So I figured it would be about time that I give you guys a little update on what's going on with it, since I have some stuff inside of it now. Let's back up a little bit so you can get a good shot of everything. And yes, I know it is very messy. We'll talk about that in a moment, because I'm going to go through a little list of the components we got so far. And there are some temporary things, so that's why we got cables just running across and whatever. Alright, so first up, motherboard. In a previous video I unboxed this. It is the Asus X99 Deluxe, and we've got a 5930K Intel i7 processor in there. You can see the red RAM there. It's the G-Skill Ripjaws DDR4, 2400 megahertz. There's 16 gigs of that. And then over here, this little stick coming out, that is a 128 gigabyte SSD. It's a Samsung M.2 drive. That's where my operating system is going to be once I get it. And then back here, you can't really see it too well without going around the back of the case, but I have created a custom mount there for my 4 terabyte WD drive that is going to be the main storage for the system. Alright, so we got the board, the RAM, the CPU, and storage. And the case. That is all permanent stuff. The temporary things are this cooler here. If you can't really get a great view of it, but the CPU cooler, it's all-in-one water cooling loop. It's the cheapest one I could find at my local computer store, just for the time being until I build my custom loop. The graphics card we have in there is an R9 270 that I just had laying around. And then this power supply, I'm not even sure what brand that is, but it's an old 600 watt power supply that I am using for the time being, until I get to the point where I need a larger one for the SLI 980 Ti's. So that power supply being non-modular, I have all these extra cables that are just kind of packed in the back of the case right now, so I'm not going to show you that because it's pretty much a mess. And also, some of the cables are not long enough for this case to go behind the motherboard tray and get to where they need to be. So like this one for the CPU power just has to go straight across because that's the only way that it can get there. So it's a little silly, but it works for the time being, and as I said, there will be upgrades to it as we go, and I'll keep you all updated with that. And on that note, we actually do have a little bit of an update right now. It's not any necessary hardware for the build. It's the reservoir for the water cooling loop. So let's check that out. I am super excited about this. Excuse me. I have been waiting for this thing. You can kind of see the top of it there, for well over a month now. It is from Frozen Q, and they make fantastic products, but it's all custom made, and there's usually a pretty long waiting list. So the time has finally come, and I have it, and it is amazing. Check it out. Oh baby, that is a nice looking reservoir. So that's gonna go right up here on the front of the case, front and center. It's gonna be one of the jewels of the case, and I'm pretty excited. So as you can see, I went with the black body and the white coils, and I went ahead and got the accompanying pump topper mount. So let's see if we can get a good view of this. It's kind of dark. Yeah, that's not bad at all. Alright, so this puppy is going to replace the top of a D5 pump. So it'll mount directly to this. Well, this will be half of the pump itself. I mean, it's going to become part of the pump body. And it is affixed to the reservoir with 4 screws. So we'll have the inlet to the reservoir here, and then it's going to go through the pump and straight to the outlet here. So that is all going to be one solid piece. It's not going to take up a whole lot of space, and it should all be concealed up here in the drive bay of the case. So the interior aesthetic of the case is not going to be bothered at all by any of that. So I'm super pumped about that. Pumped. Anyway, let's stick this in for the moment, so you can get a good look of how it looks in the case. Let's pop these puppies off. And I did run into a little bit of a hang-up test fitting it earlier. The hole itself is, perfect size. That's what it's made for. But I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see. Yeah, on the inside here, there's a little lip that kind of separates the two drive bays. So no, it doesn't look like there's any marks on the reservoir, but when I was trying to test fit it, it would only go about halfway, and I couldn't figure out why. So I figured it was just kind of tight, and I was pushing it a little bit more, and I figured out those lips were blocking it, so I had to break off a little bit of those so it would fit in, and now it does so perfectly. Alright, let's get a good shot of that. Oh baby, that looks pretty stinking fantastic, and it makes me super pumped about getting this thing finished up. So even fitting perfectly, there are still a few issues with it, and well, mounting it is going to be a little bit of a thing, and building the loop and all, because of the way that it sits in there, and there's not really room to get my hands inside the bay area. Once it's in place, what I'm going to have to do is get my tubes that connect to it bent and kind of in place already, and then slide the reservoir in to meet the tubes, and then mount it. So that's a little bit weird, but I mean, not too much of an issue, because once that's in, it's final. The next thing is the filling of the loop. So the fill port, let's pop this back out so I can show you. Alright, the fill port is right on top of the reservoir there. So I was kind of figuring, not a huge deal. I'll have to remove the front I/O panel to access it, and I mean, it's not every day that I'm going to be filling it, so I mean, that's not even a thing. But after test fitting it and seeing just where everything lines up and all of that, I found that there is actually a little bit of the chassis that overlaps the fill port. Let's see, by about that much, so like half covered. So what I'm thinking, well, there's a few different routes I can take. One of those would be putting a Y splitter on the line that goes to the inlet, and then having a flexible tube that goes somewhere out the back of the case or something that I just use for filling. And the other option would be taking a Dremel or something like that, and just kind of taking a little chunk out of the chassis to make that just accessible. So I would still have to go through the process of disassembling the front of the case in order to fill my loop, but as I said earlier, I'm not really bothered by that because it's just going to be uh, a rare occasion that I have to get that filled. So let's pop this back in there and get one last look at it. The reservoir there, that was really the main thing I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Oh, and boy, oh boy, do I like looking at that. I cannot wait to get this build finished. So like I said, I will be bringing you guys updates as they come. I'm kind of getting one big part every month or so. So I've kind of got the list planned out. I'm going to get a display next, and then a graphics card, and then a second graphics card, and so on. So we'll be back again with more updates and whatnot, and I'll see you next time. Peace out, folks.